A very good morning from South Cambridge here in the United Kingdom, and here's a Starlink update from myself and Des, European Des, who's loving his moustache. So in today's episode, I'm going to cover some real world tests, and these tests will hopefully give you an idea of how Starlink could work for you. So first of all, we're going to start off with firmware, which is really important. Massive firmware update this week, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the first ones to have it. And I could see everybody else in the forums getting slightly envious because my jitter and ping dropped substantially. So that'll be first on the list. I'll show you what that is and what it's done. Next up, I'll talk about gaming. Gaming's important. I have a 15-year-old son and he plays Fortnite like a beast. And it's important that he has good ping, good connection, doesn't drop out. So we've some gameplay of that and how things worked out there. And then I'm going to move on to uploads and downloads. So upload real world test. I don't have any friends, so I've sent myself a file and you can see how quickly that uploads and then how quickly it downloads. And then finally, I'm going to share a link with you to a survey, and this is for the UK customer service team for Starlink, and they do take your comments and your feedback on board to try and shape things for the future. And we've already seen that actually in April when they took feedback, they made some amendments, they sent a nice email, and they seem to be listening, which is an encouraging step. So if you want to contribute to that, the link will be in the description. Please feel free to fill that short survey in. Anyway, before we do all that, something more important. This is a small Yorkie eating breakfast. So this week saw one of the most substantial firmware updates in my opinion. Yes, there's not these breaknecking speeds that we once saw, but there is an improved stability. So I've noticed that ping has dropped more frequently, and I've also noticed that jitter has dropped. And that matters when it comes to things like gaming or voice calls or Zoom and the various other things that we've got used to during the pandemic. We're now in endemic, so I don't know if that makes a difference. But the point being, the firmware update is solid. It's a step in the right direction. So good job, and I look forward to the next one. Next up, here is some real world gaming. Now I've recorded my son's screen using his Xbox. It's only recorded in 720p. We didn't really have time to set up video capture to record it in 4K. However, if that is a request and that's something you do want to see, more than happy to share that with you. And his feedback was relatively interesting. He enjoyed it, actually. What we found on our previous ISP, ping would shoot up sometimes to 150, 200, but it would drop down to 20, 30. Starlink was a bit of a different matter. It sat quite comfortably between 20 and 50, which in terms of gaming, I think is good, considering we're still in the very early days of beta. So I sat and watched him play this last night and I felt like my head was going to explode. Lots of information, lots of building stuff, and yes, this was not his finest game by any stretch. He felt a bit of pressure as there was a camera right behind him and his dad standing there recording him. Awkward for him, I guess. Also, while Daniel was playing Fortnite, there was a demand on the network, so there was other people in the house using things like Netflix. And it was a Friday night, so you can imagine people are on devices and all have their own little demands. And honestly, I think it performed quite well. But you can maybe measure that for yourself and make that call if you think it'd be right for you. How did you find Starlink?
I found Starlink very good. I think it's a bit better than our other network that I used to be on, because the other network, the ping used to be around, I don't know, about 150. And the level that it would sit at was about 50, and you'd get really big lag spikes. So I'm really liking Starlink because I'm not getting that many dropouts. I get some because it's still in beta, but yeah, I think it's really good. You ask me another question?
Yeah.
You're just going to stand here.
Yeah.
Just looking at my recorded gameplay.
Pretty good. Good job. Well done.
Yeah, no problem.
But a massive thank you to Mini Irish Pixel for doing that, and also his comments at the end. Very useful for those who are gaming. So I would suggest that Starlink is now a viable option for gaming. Competitive gaming? I'm not sure. We're not good enough to be competitive gamers. So next up, I'm going to move on to uploads and downloads. I've emailed myself because I had nobody else to send an email to. And you can see from this test that upload was about 6 minutes. So I started at 07:51, it finished at 07:57, and that was 590 megabytes. I think that is MB. And I know somebody's going to correct me on that. The file size actually showed at 618.9, so whenever I've dropped it into WeTransfer, something's happened to it. So I'm going to summarize this one real quick rather than leave this running for 6 minutes or whatever it was. Upload was 6 minutes, as I said. Download was 25 seconds. So there you have it, some real world testing, and I hope that has helped you understand how this system performs. It is improving week on week, and I'm glad that the customer services team are listening here in the United Kingdom. I cannot speak for the ones abroad, but I do know that they do make contact with people within the community, and they take the feedback quite seriously. So whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, have a good one, and I will catch you later.